Hey everyone, welcome to a very special edition of the Shamanwood podcast, Out of the Gloom. I am Bill Skoronsky. You can call me Puddles. This is John Kreis. He's Doghouse. And you may already recognize our third man today. This is John Millville. Welcome back to the show, Millville.
All right, thanks for having me again.
This is obviously an indication of why this show is so special today. This episode is special because Millville's already been here once. But what happened was he saw an opening on the cue sheet. He saw that no one had signed up last week. And like a man who did not need to be told what to do, he took it on his own accord and decided that he wanted to talk about Q Source today. So we're going to talk about Q Source, specifically the Sua Sponte chapter within Q Source. But before we do that, Millville, I want you to take us back to, I believe it was May, that you started something called the Bricklayer Challenge. And out of that came something really interesting called the Code of Honor. So I want you to talk a little bit about that just to tee up how we got to this point today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, Sua Sponte is something that is really close to my heart. It's something that I think after 3 years of doing F3 and talking about what it means to be freed to lead, I think this part of this chapter out of Q Source is something that I've seen play out over and over again. I think some of the packs that we admire the most in the region, they do this naturally. And I think over time, we all start to do this naturally as well. So the Bricklayer Challenge, as you guys know, periodically we all do certain things throughout our region, different challenges. 75 hard is one that you'll see guys will do periodically.
We
70,
just finished the Sandlot running challenge.
yeah,
Yes,
Sandlot, right?
today is the last day,
Who
actually.
started that one, by the way? I
I
can't
think that was
remember.
started in Louisville by Captain Crunch.
It's awesome
One
that
of the guys in
Captain Crunch.
Louisville started that. And I think, honestly, there are more men from Plainfield and Shamanwood
Yeah,
that I've seen in that than any other region. It's crazy how many men right here locally picked that up and ran. And a lot of that's due to Sparkler
I was gonna
taking
say,
it and running with it,
I think
getting all
Sparkler
to
and
listen to it.
Foreclosure are trying to turn the world into runners.
Yeah,
If I swear to God,
yeah.
like,
All right. So another example
uh,
of that kind of leadership.
yeah, so I think you see these challenges throughout. 75 hard is one. I won't go into great detail in the podcast about that. Y'all could look it up. It's very popular. But 75 hard is a 75-day challenge. And I've tried it a few times. I don't think I've ever made it through the entire 75 days. It's quite
Really?
long. It's really difficult.
Okay.
I've made it through 75 days, but kind of cutting a couple corners
Hmm.
and kind of like tweaking the rules of 75 hard. So that's why I say I don't think I've ever truly done it. But the problem I always have with 75 hard was that I like the structure, I like the principles, and if you get through it, it will change you. But there was something about it that just it wasn't what I wanted. It didn't really align with my own personal goals, and I thought there were things that were missing. So I guess I'll unpack it a little bit. But in 75 hard, there, you work out twice a day, two
Hmm.
45-minute workouts. For those guys who are doing 7 days a week in F3, you're already going to hit that like 40, half of it you're already going to hit if you're just posting every day.
Hmm.
And one of the rules in 75 hard is that one of the workouts has to be outdoors, right? So that part was kind of easy for me. The other part was that you got to read 10 pages a day. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to refrain from drinking any sort of alcohol, and you have to have some sort of diet. The diet is up to you, whatever your goals are, but some sort of nutrition plan is a part of 75 hard. So it's pretty simple. Um, but I still felt like there was something else that was missing. I fell into something that Jocko Willink does called what's it called? Def Reset, which is discipline equals freedom. That's his coin
Hmm.
branded thing that he does. And I believe they do it in January. They have a nice app. And his thing,
Discipline equals freedom.
yeah, discipline
Interesting.
equals
Okay.
freedom. That's one of his coined phrases, and he has a challenge in January. I can't say I understand it completely, but I did look around the app, and what I had liked was that it was a little bit of 75 hard, where there was like a reading element, something about getting up early,
Mhm.
get up early before the enemy, some very Jocko Willink phrase, had something to do with working out, getting after it every morning. Um, but then what he had in there, he also had something about journaling and writing, which I
Mhm.
thought was really interesting. Um, and he had a few other things that he kind of sprinkled in there. And so I had kind of thought to myself, I'm like, guys throughout the region are always doing some sort of challenge, but we're usually always adopting a challenge that we see somewhere else, whether it be 75 hard or def reset. And so I had thought, I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if we could just take 75 hard? def reset and then take the Q source and just throw it into a blender and then see if we can make something that's like feels very F3, but then has this kind of daily challenge, right? So then I started playing around with ChatGPT and I was just kind of having fun with it. I was like, well, okay, let's take this, let's mix this. And then I just kind of started having this conversation with ChatGPT until we came across this thing and I got this idea of calling it the Bricklayer challenge because a lot of guys are reading Atomic Habits and the whole idea of laying, these stackable, repeatable small habits that would lead to long-term change and growth. And then, Brick Lane is right out of Q Source. So I was like, oh, that's like a perfect name for it. And then, I started having fun with it. And then I was just like, all right, well, I want to do this and I don't want to do it alone. And then I thought, like, I'm just going to put a backblast out there and we're just going to see if people will opt into it. And let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, people were like, yeah, this is something that I need. We had a couple other guys from different regions from the Outlands wanted to get in on it. Guys from F3 Plainfield wanted to get on it. And then it turned into like this multi-regional challenge. And to be honest, I didn't really have much of a plan to scale it that big. And I thought, man, I better start creating like a spreadsheet or something to start tracking. These guys are getting pretty serious about it. And long story short, turned into a 30-day challenge. And then we did that in May. And, I think that was it's just an example of when you have an idea and being free to lead and just charging ahead with it. But,
It's a great example.
yeah.
There's that point at which you have an idea and you have the internal conversation with yourself, like, should I make this bigger than myself?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, should I make this something that I don't do by myself? And then I think we kind of went through this with the podcast.
Exactly.
Like, let's just try it. And then it catches this big wave of momentum, and you're like, oh, now we need to take this a little bit more seriously. We have to structure it not for ourselves, but for everybody else who wants to do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Getting it onto the cue sheet.
Yeah.
And creating some sort of outline and having a plan for it. Like, did that take away any of the joy, or did you feel like, oh, now I've got this extra responsibility to make this something real?
100%. I think it's a spark. Isn't it funny too? Like, just like how you said about the podcast, like how it starts to mutate.
Mhm.
And then the idea starts to kind of grow and to fold on itself. And it goes into this direction you didn't even expect it. Because
Yeah.
at first it came from a selfish need. Like, I wanted to do 75 hard. It wasn't fitting my life.
Mhm.
It wasn't really something that I could figure out how to implement in my own personal life, but selfishly, like, I needed something.
Yeah.
Def Reset was kind of close, but it was isolated and nobody really knew it and nobody was really into it. And then, like, it just kind of started spinning. And then once it starts catching on where more guys start opting into it, then you start to feel this responsibility where it's like, oh, now I really have to own this.
Yeah. When
And then I
I
have to
started
scale
signing up
this.
for it, like, oh, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah, right. It was kind of uh leave the boats, right? Like
Yeah, burn the boats.
All
Yeah,
right,
I
here
guess
we
we're
go.
doing it. Yep.
We're going forward with
Burn the
this.
boats. I never heard that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
So burn the boats is I forget who exactly coined it, but basically when there was they landed in,
And so you land on an island,
thank you.
and there's the decision you make at that moment that you're not going back.
Yeah.
So you burn the boats,
Okay.
use it to keep yourself warm because you're never leaving.
All right.
So you've committed to it, you're
Yeah.
fully bought in, burn the boats. We're not going
There's
back.
no back.
I like it.
It's a
Yeah.
go forward
Yeah.
plan. Right?
But
I like
it's
that.
funny you said like you felt it was a selfish thing for you. Like the podcast in the beginning, I felt like was a selfish need because I can rarely ever stick around for a cafeteria. Like with
Yeah.
my situation at home, like I've
Sure.
got to get home, I've got to get my wife and my daughter off to school. I always felt like I'm missing out on these conversations that the men are having.
Mhm.
And I'm like, how can we take that and give it to the rest of the men? Because the few times I have stuck around, I'm like, oh, I wish more people heard this. I wish more than just the 10 of us who are here got a chance to hear what we're talking about. So that's where the idea of the podcast came from. And then suddenly, like you said, like guys started opting into it. Like guys would sign up without us asking. We're like, oh, that's becoming a thing. We put it on the cue sheet and it filled up for a couple of weeks. And then we had the opposite experience. We're like, oh, nobody showed up. What do we do?
Yeah.
Like, what do we do for that 1 week? And then Sparkler came up to me yesterday at the 5K here. He's like,
Yeah.
where the hell's the podcast?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So it's missing and people notice now.
Yeah.
Now they notice. So now we've got
That's
to
a
figure
great
this out.
tie-in because one thing we've talked about that we, hopefully the listeners take from this is that we'll conduct it, we'll record it, we'll post it, but it's really on the packs to get on the cue sheet.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties in with our topic for the day. So
Well, even more to the
on
point, it's always like when we talk to the men who are going to be on the next episode, it's always like, well, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
Like, no, this is your episode. Like,
Yeah.
we're just here to facilitate it. Whatever is passionate, whatever you want to talk about, that's what we're going to talk about. And that's when it comes across the best. Like you're talking about the Bricklayer, you're talking about Sua Sponte. That's going to come across really genuinely, really effectively for people who are listening because they know that's you talking
Yeah.
about something that matters to you. So you added one more thing to the Bricklayer, which was the code of honor.
Hmm.
And I remember that being something where like we went into GPT, we're like, have it create something. And it didn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
Like it felt like, yes, this kind of feels right, but kind of not. So I went back and I found mine, and I wonder if you can recall at parts what yours was about. Mine was stand in truth, ensure with heart, create with purpose. I felt like the create with purpose one really spoke to me.
Yeah.
Like that's what this is about. That's what the philosophy channel is about. Like that, I felt like it really got me at that point. But did you hear from other men like what their feedback on the challenge was?
Yeah, that was actually really great. So just for some context for those that were listening, as we did the Bricklayer Challenge, the Bricklayer Challenge consisted of what we called the Daily Six.
Mhm.
So the core of the challenge was every day you had 6 tasks to complete. Um, and we had little check boxes. And the idea was that in 75 hard, if you fail a task, you got to start over from day one again. And then your day 75 starts from the day of failure.
Yeah.
And for Bricklayer, I didn't want it to be that. I wanted to be like, I wanted you to learn how to own your failures, be able to look back at the data to see how many days did I miss, how many days did I
It was
fail.
supposed to be like a visual.
It's supposed to be a visual
like a wall of
thing.
bricks.
Yeah, it was actually that was actually an accident too. So I had a spreadsheet that was like color coordinated, and if you
Mhm.
failed, it would change colors, and
Mhm.
it just so happened to look like bricks because of the different cells on the Excel sheet, but it kind of looked like you were laying bricks. It was kind of a happy little accident.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was a daily 6, and then every week we did like a weekly challenge. So one week was a code of honor, and I had thought I was like, a lot of times we say that we live by principles, we live by virtues, but I think that if you were to challenge any given man out there in the gloom, myself included, and say, well, what are your virtues? What are your
Mhm.
principles? I think you would struggle to say what those are, right?
Yeah.
To sit down, you might be like, well, I don't know, integrity, or you might say, like,
Right.
oh, I don't know, like being disciplined. But have you really thought through it? So, with AI, I thought it'd be fun. Like, hey, I'll create a prompt, and then this prompt will prompt ChatGPT to take you down a series of questions and self-discovery. And the idea was to clearly be able to clearly define your core principles and values, why those matter to you, how you act those out every day, and then for ChatGPT to actually write a code of honor for you. And then at the end of that code of honor, you would have like just like one little tagline or little tag phrase that would kind of like summarize your whole code of honor. And I did like a play one where like I did one like to pretend like if David Goggins had done the exercise. I did one of like Michelangelo from Ninja Turtles had done it. I did one of like, Gandalf the Grey did it, and it was kind of fun. And guys did that. So a lot of guys, it was really cool to see everyone else's. I can't remember all of them, but guys on the Slack channel are sharing all their different code of honors and stuff. And for me, mine actually ended up coming down to my tagline was, if not me, then who? And that was just came down because a lot of my values and principles come around about having bias for action, not waiting for permission for others to do the right thing. Like you don't need permission to do the right thing. You don't need to ask for permission. The right thing to do is always the right thing to do. And that's just something that I think is something that I value because I also think it's something I struggle with.
Hmm.
I think it's something throughout my entire life I've struggled with. And so I think that's why it's such a high value for me. And I think people out there in the gloom that I respect the most are people who really demonstrate, I think we call it I2, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Individual initiative, which comes right out of Q Source. And that's just something um, that I've just been taking with me into the gloom. I take it with me in my personal life. It's something that comes up when I'm in that moment of I really want this. I wish this was happening, or oh, that should happen, or oh, I see a problem, I see a fire starting,
Yeah.
and then that phrase pops up in my head. It's like, all right, well, if not me, then who?
Yeah, exactly. That's how we got to this point today where you saw an opening on the Q sheet. You said, well, if I don't fill it, who's going to?
Yeah.
And nobody else is going to. So that lined up perfectly coming out of the Bricklayer with what we're talking about today, which again is Q source. And specifically, I highlighted this, it's section 4.1. So section 4 means quadrant 4. Why don't you and Doghouse talk us through, because you guys just went through this here in the Q source now. Talk us through what the 4 quadrants of Q source are and why those are there.
Yeah, I'll kick that over to Doggy.
Yeah, so let's see how much I remember properly. So the four quadrants I know are basically as you progress through life and leadership, right? Of course, the first quadrant would be get right. You've got to get your own house, get yourself in order in affairs before you can start to lead and help others.
Mhm.
Um,
And that means a lot of different things, right?
Right.
Like getting yourself physically right,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally right. I think in the bigger picture, we talk about F3 changes men so they can change the world.
mhm.
But you've got to start at home, like your own home relationships. Like, how are you doing that? So quadrant one is the get right. Quadrant two, then moving over is live right.
Live
Right.
right.
Yep.
Okay. So tell us more about live right.
Live right is I'm blanking here. It's been a little bit since we've been.
I think it's
through
more
any of
like the day-to-day what we're doing here. You talked about atomic habits.
Yeah,
It's really
I think living right is actually so getting right. Yeah, exactly. Like getting your house in order. I think there's also I think there's that illustration of the canoe, right? Where they say like it's like you're trying to paddle down the river of life. Your canoe's tipped over, right? Well, before you can even start paddling right again, you got to get your canoe upright, right? You got to get
Okay.
that water out of your boat, get yourself back up your canoe, right? That's getting right. Then living right is actually, actually starting to progress in the right way. You're taking those new habits that you have, you're actually acting those out, you're putting that discipline forward. Leading right then is starting to get other men to do the things that you did. Like I got myself together, I figured out the formula, what works for me. I got my canoe upright. I'm paddling down river. Now I see another guy whose canoe's tipped over. I'm
Because
gonna
who
go
would
over there
follow
and
you
help
if you
him.
don't have your own shit together?
100%,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you got to get your own shit together before you could start
I
helping
think
other
I'll
people.
come back to that in the
Yeah.
COT, but I think we look at leaders, people who are traditionally defined as leaders, and a lot of them don't have their shit together. Like they're very, very flawed. And we look at that and we say, well, how can I follow this person as flawed as they are? I think that's what the live right is intended to do is say like, well, if you're going to be the leader, be somebody worth leading. And then you've got, so get right, live right, the lead right, I think
Yeah.
is kind of what sets up the fourth quadrant,
Yeah.
but we're all kind of learning that right
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah, we're all in that. I think a lot of us who have been doing this for a while and take this pretty seriously are now in that leading quadrant. And I don't think there's any kind of time that it takes to get there, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any time to get there. I think some people get there sooner than others. Some are still working on their way to get there. But I think for me, like that's why I think the live right part is kind of where that code of honor kind of comes into place, right? It's like, okay, now you got your stuff together. You understand you understand your weaknesses, your
Mhm.
failures, you're getting your shit together. And now that code of honor is like how you're living right. Like that's what you're holding yourself again, right? That you're like, all right, I said these are my virtues. I said these are my values. Like, am I living up to these daily? How do I come back to these?
And then again, how can you lead others if you don't know where you're going?
Yeah.
Like if you're just wandering, you're not really leading. You're just wandering and hoping something good happens.
Yeah.
Which that sets up the fourth quadrant, which is the lever, right? The
Yep.
legacy portion
Mhm.
of it. Talk a little bit about that because that's where the Sua Sponte comes into it.
Yeah, leave right. That's a weird one, man. 'Cause I feel like I'm still young enough, and I'm not there yet to say like I have a legacy that I've left behind, right? But I
Yeah.
think I do. I mean, when you look at if you look at like F3 playing field and you look at the people who came before us, like there are men, regardless of their age, that have left a
Mhm.
legacy already.
Yeah.
Just in that
Absolutely.
region. And I think now with F3 Shamanwood and us standing this up on their feet, like there are people now like that we're getting ready to
Yeah.
hand off those flags, because
Mhm.
we're at our 1 year. We're getting ready to switch our SLT up, our shared leadership team. And that first team already has left a legacy. So it's
Mhm.
kind of interesting to think, when you think of legacy, sometimes I feel like, like I'm like 80 years old. This is my
Right.
money in my state that I left
What are you
behind. But
leaving
that's
behind
not
children?
necessarily it. I think it can happen in ways that you don't even
Yeah.
necessarily fully appreciate.
Well, just like you said, like being starfished off from Plainfield, which came from Naperville, and there's a whole legacy there. But you've got now men who are starting new AOs here in Shamanwood.
Yeah.
You've got men who are going to be coming out of the convergence as defined leaders. Like that is what they're starting to build. And like you said, the first SLT is leaving a legacy behind.
Yeah.
Like this wouldn't be growing if that wasn't set up right. So to set up that legacy and not even realize it's happening in the moment, I think is really challenging. But when we talk about you mentioned individual initiative, and I know that's a big part of being a sua sponte leader.
Mm-hmm.
That also has its own components. So talk a little bit about individual initiative, I2, and whether we can teach that to others or train that in others. How does that come about?
Well, that's a hard one. Like, how do you teach individual initiative other than actually taking it?
Yeah. Yeah, you can. It's not taught. It's initiative, right? It's gumption. It's you have it or you don't for the most part.
But I think you can teach it by demonstrating it, right? 'Cause I think the reason I see it and I've done it is because I've seen other men do it, right? And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, okay, well that's how it is, you know? Um, I think an interesting example of that right now is like the whole thing of Morris, right? Like Morris
Mhm.
wants to start a new AO, you know, that I think it's snail mail and toolbox,
Mhm.
right? They want to plant one in their hometown. And I remember they were getting ready to do like that Black Ops. And I guess you could say there's a right or wrong way to do a Black Ops. But it's interesting because all you really need is a flag to go out there and do it. Like, who's going to tell you you can't do it? Nobody.
Right.
And I guarantee you, like right now, even though we have people on the leadership team, like nobody's going to stop you from putting a Black Ops out there or posting it or
Mhm.
however you want to do it. Just grab a flag, go plant it, put it up on Slack that you're doing it, and guys will show up, you know? And I think that's just,
Yeah, I was gonna say it was kind of the same with like Shamu when we were discussing splitting or not. It's like, who's gonna stop us from starting our own region? There's no,
Mm.
you know,
but I think it's one of those things that you assume that you need permission.
Mhm.
And
Because you probably don't feel like this is mine entirely to own.
oh,
Like this belongs to everybody. Who am I to go off and start my own thing?
but at the
You
same
want to do
time,
it the
there's
right
no
way.
money involved. It's not like a real organization. Nobody's getting paid. Like there's no
Mhm.
like real like, you know, damage to some sort of, I don't know, like none of us have a quota to hit or anything like that. It's just a bunch of guys who meet in a parking lot in the morning, right? So it's like it's kind of, yeah, you don't have to wait for anybody to do anything. And that's where a lot of things have come out of like Black Diamond Lift Club. That's where that
Mhm.
came from. Like there was no permission. We just did it and
So
it turned into
another
Philly.
initiative that
Yeah.
you took this year
Yeah.
to start something that didn't exist previously, but you wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
So talk me through how that process started.
That was just started because I'm at 3 years in I'm past 3 years now for F3. I've done just about every kind of workout that you can think of. I've had periods in those 3 years where I was really heavy on running. I've had periods throughout those 3 years. I was really heavy on the boot camps. And the one thing that is really hard to find, and I think you'll lose certain types of packs, is people who like traditional gym workouts, people who like the predictability of being able to hit certain muscle groups, or people who want to lift, you know, slow and they want to lift heavy. Sometimes you'll lose those guys. They start going back to their gym. For me, my fitness goals were starting to change, and I wanted to get into weightlifting. I was reading up a lot on it, and that's just something that I couldn't find in the gloom. And so it was pulling me away from it.
Mm.
And then I was like, well, I had this curl bar, and I was like, well, what if I just start posting? I'll start snagging a bunch of cues because people weren't filling the cue sheet anyways. It's like, I'll take
Mhm.
all these cues and I'm just going to create lift heavy cues. Like I had no template for a Black Diamond Lift Club. I just had like, I knew I was like, well, if I was at home lifting in my home gym, what would I be doing today?
Okay.
That's what I'm going to cue. And then I just did that. I just did it, you know, over and over again. Next thing you know, like guys were really starting to show up.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it
It
exploded
did.
very
Yeah.
similarly to what we were talking about earlier, where now you've got guys bringing like a whole gym out here. Like for the guys who
Yeah,
haven't been to the Black Diamond
it's
Lift Club.
insane. Yeah, so the Black Diamond Lift Club, I mean, when people take the cue sheet, you'll have anything from guys who will just say, "Hey, bring your own weight," and we'll just kind of, you know, I'll
Mhm.
call it the cadence. If you got lighter weight, do higher reps. If you got heavy weight, do slower reps. Drop out of the rep count, you know, quicker. Some guys will cue it that way. Other guys will cue and they'll bring like an entire gym out here. Foreclosures came and unloaded
Yeah.
like a Charter Fitness out of his truck before. We've had guys who have like made makeshift benches with like, you know, a legit Olympic curl bar or Olympic
yeah.
barbell and like put up on some cinder
Mhm.
blocks and they'll do like stations where we're
Right here.
literally, yeah. I
It,
mean, you'll
it, it
see all
is
kinds of
literally
stuff.
right here where we're recording.
Yeah, yeah, literally right here in this
This looks
pavilion.
like a high school gym.
Yeah, a hundred
We've got
percent.
stations all around and guys, I've been to it a couple times and I will say the energy is different.
It's a lot
It
different.
feels like off-season football training camp. Like it feels like you're in a
Yeah,
garage. There's louder music. The guys are really into it. It's not. I think the ones I have been to are station by station. So you're
yeah,
doing your own thing with a partner. You're doing your own thing,
yeah,
and then you're moving to the next spot. It's not listening to whoever's leading it and
yeah.
doing what they're saying. So the energy is different, kind of like a Three Hours Friday. I think the energy at Black Diamond Lift Club
It
is
is.
very different.
And Latte started doing this thing now where he does like a working name-orama. So like as guys are lifting, he'll go around and start doing name-orama and put the camera in your face. So you got to do your name and call sign and all that as you're like lifting weights. It's just the energy is crazy. But again, like it came out of, and I think whenever you're talking about Sua Sponte leadership, and in my experience, whether it's Bricklayer Challenge, Dragon Clan was another one that I did, the Black Diamond Lift Club. I'll say that they almost always come out of like a selfish need or a selfish desire for something that I want, something that I wish was here that wasn't there. And then this nagging voice in the back of my head that says, well, if you want it so bad, why don't you just do it? Maybe you're the one. Like maybe nobody else is doing it because nobody else sees a need for it, but you see it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to take a little I2 and just get to it, Millville, make it, build it, see what happens. And then it's funny because what I found out is that when I have these selfish needs or desires, what I've learned is that like my selfish needs and desires are not that much different than other people's.
Yeah.
Like my needs tend to be what other people need too. And then when you take that individual initiative, you make it, and when it blows up, all that is showing you is that like other people wanted this too. They just didn't know it.
Yeah.
They just didn't need it. Kind of reminds me of like Steve Jobs back in the day when in the early days of Apple, he had like this phrase where it was like, it's not the customer's job to know what they want. You know, and it was this idea of like it's not their job to know what it wants, and I don't. That's not something I think about when I do this. It's actually something I just thought about right now as we're riffing here. But it's like, yes, not everyone knows what they want. Sometimes somebody has to see it and bring it out.
This is going to sound off track, but that's art.
Yeah,
there's 100% art. Like I've heard a songwriter that I really like say, my most popular songs are the ones that I thought nobody would like because they were just mine. Like you write something, you create something, you think, well, this is how I feel. Like I'm afraid to let it out into the world because I don't think anybody else feels like this. And it blows up because, like you said, people are like, yeah, I feel that way too.
Yeah.
I didn't say it because I didn't want to be the first one to say it.
Yeah.
But now that I hear it, now I'm singing along with it. But now that I created this, like at Black Diamond, now I'm coming out to it. Like now that somebody else took that first step, I'm willing to follow and take the second step.
100%. 100%. And that's where I've seen that play out in my own initiatives. I've seen that play out in other people's initiatives. I mean, Foreclosure did that thing where he did, was it the all day 50K or whatever? It was just something he wanted to do. Like that guy has been like on this journey for running and pushing miles, and he's got that David Goggins track playing in his head all the time. And he this day was like, I want to do 50K. And it sounds crazy. Like nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
But the next thing you know, like all these guys did it. It was a big event. I've seen that play out over and over again from different packs, whether it's the Sandlot Challenge. And it's all these guys who've just taken the I2. They're just like, all right, well, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let's just build it, like kind of build it, see if they come, sort of a situation. And they do. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is that like your needs are not that different from everybody else's needs. And if F3 does anything, especially curing that middle-aged male loneliness, it's the fact that like most guys probably feel the same way you do, right? And that isolation, that drawing back into your own fears, your own depression, whatever it is. Chances are you're not alone in it, but being alone is what's dangerous.
And what's interesting about F3 in itself is that it feels like, it's going to sound odd to say, but it feels like a safe space to try things like that. 100%. I've never heard somebody say, well, that was stupid. Let's never do that again. It's almost always like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Let's keep leaning into that. And no matter what you try, I think part of that I2 leadership is failing too.
Yes.
Part of that is growing through failure. Like whether you're exercising your muscle fatigue or just trying something new, realizing, okay, that was close, but didn't quite work out. Like you went through this with Bricklayer.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that went really well, but what can I learn from it?
Yeah.
How can I do it better next time? What can I take away from the men who went through it? And I think we have that's being free to lead. So when you have the permission to do something, not because it has to be done perfectly, but because there's a mission you're trying to achieve.
Sure.
20 different ways to get there, but you've taken the initiative to take your own creative approach to getting there.
I mean, what's at risk? Failure. But what does failure do? Failure only teaches what you did wrong, right? So, all right, what I do, that's just
the risk is not doing anything.
Yeah.
The risk is just passively sitting back and
Complacency, right?
Yeah.
Like Sun Tzu says, it's more wars are lost by indecision than poor decision.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because you're just waiting, and waiting is a decision. Like if you're in a burning building
Yeah.
and there's a window and there's a door. You have three options. Go out the window, go out the door, or just sit there, do nothing. That's an option. And so many people just sit there and burn because they're too afraid to go out the door. They're too afraid to go out the window. Just analysis paralysis. They sit there and burn.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that's like a default mode of operation? Is it just like a, I don't know, just
Afraid to be wrong.
risk aversion? I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think by nature we're self-preservation minded.
Yeah.
Like maybe the fire will go out on its own
Yeah.
if I stay here. But if I make a decision and the fire's out that door, then I made the wrong decision and it's my fault now.
Taking ownership for making the mistake. That's scary,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. But being the person who makes a mistake and can own it as opposed to it's my fault.
I got a colleague who's got a laptop full of stickers like most of us IT nerds do, and one of them is nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
You got to fix it yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to, there's an outage, website's down. So go fix it.
Yeah. I saw a quote a couple weeks ago. It said, the only person who's coming to save you is the person who's tired of who you are now. I
like
thought,
that.
yeah, that's how we all
interesting.
got here. Like
Yeah.
the only reason that we're getting better every day is because some version of ourselves was like, I'm sick and tired of who you are. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, that's not who I want to be. So you're the one coming to save yourself. It's just some version of you that you haven't invented yet. But that's kind of bringing it back to Q Source and what resonated with me about Sua Sponte leadership is something I read a long time ago about commander's intent. And it's another military principle in which there's a mission. Let's say the mission is to capture the flag on the top of the hill. And your plan is to go up the west side of the hill. Suddenly the west side of the hill is blocked. To your point about inaction, do you just stop? You say like, all right, well, we're going to wait for somebody to tell us what to do. Or do you say, no, we have to find another way to the top of the hill. We have to figure something else out. We have to take the initiative to figure out a new plan to the top of the hill to grab the flag. And the commander's intent says, as long as you know what the purpose is, doesn't matter how you get there.
Yeah.
And if the commander is killed, the commander's intent survives.
Yeah.
So you follow whatever the intent was. And if our intent is to build and grow this thing, it doesn't matter whether it goes to Morris, whether it goes to Coal City, wherever it goes, the idea is still the same. And any one of us is free to lead, to pick that up and to run with it. So I think that's what stood out to me most about the quadrant 4, where we were talking about Sua Sponte. But I was wondering if there's anything we haven't talked about regarding Sua Sponte that you wanted to touch on, or Q Source in general.
I think it's just when it comes to that free to lead, that individual initiative, the I2, I think it's as simple as that. It's like just grab a flag, run out in front, and plant it if you have an idea. I think there's something that happens. It's a real phenomenon that happens in large groups, and that's just diffusion of responsibility. It's just like you just assume that somebody else will do it. Or if you're in a large group, you're like, well, certainly somebody must have already thought of this, and there's a reason that they're not doing it. And certainly I don't know. Like maybe it's kind of like an imposter syndrome thing that maybe.
No, there's a psychological study that was done where someone staged a fake injury and watched how many people just walked by.
Yeah.
And the idea is that, well, somebody else must be calling. Somebody else must be doing something. I'm not going to because I'm sure somebody else already called. And it just shows how little people do take the initiative to do the right thing in the right moment, which is always the right thing. It's like, well, I won't do it. Somebody else will do
Somebody
it.
else will. I had that myself yesterday when you texted us and said, can somebody bring the hotspot? Because we're remote today, right? And I had that moment of like, Millville respond or something. I'm like, wait, no, I have one. I'll just bring one.
Mhm.
So even in a small microcosm example within this podcast, same idea. It's just in us, I think.
I just did it yesterday because we had the Will County Brewing Company 5K here. And I remember last year it happened on Chumbucket's birthday. So he led like a warmorama. And I thought that was the coolest thing, just to have a bunch of F3 guys around flags, like where we work out every day, and nobody was doing it. So I was like, well, I'll just do it. Like I'll put together a pre-blast and we'll do a 1 mile warm-up run, and then we did the warmorama around the flags. And it was like you said, like I thought somebody else was just going to do it.
Yeah.
I thought Chum would do it or Ernie would do it or somebody else would just step up. And after a while, I'm like, well, if not me, who?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, for I think the takeaway is just if you see a gap, if you see a small fire starting, if you see a need for something and you're sitting around, you're wondering, well, how come nobody else has done it? Like, why isn't it? If you ever find yourself complaining about how something is in a certain way, I think the simple answer is, well, because right now you're the only one that sees it. So congratulations, you're a brainiac. Now go do something about it. You're the smartest guy in the room. You're the only one that sees it. Now it's your responsibility to own it and do it. And I think for me, it's one of those things where like I've come to where it's just, I feel like if you see a problem and you identify a problem and there's no action being taken, I feel like you inherit the responsibility to action on it. That's now it is your responsibility because you saw it and you know it's a problem and you know that it needs to be fixed. So what are you going to do about
You're
it?
either actively ignoring it
Yeah.
or you're doing something about it.
And I think I heard something, maybe this is one of your stoic guys, maybe one of your guys, but I heard it somewhere where it was like, what you neglect today will rule you tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, that's so true.
Mhm.
If that doesn't if that doesn't spur some I too in you, it's just like, hey man, whatever you're neglecting today, it's gonna rule you tomorrow. So if you see it and you're ignoring it, then
the passive ruin
yeah.
is just ignoring the thing that is going to end up tearing you apart. I would add to what you just said, something you said earlier, beyond if you see a need for it, if you feel a selfish need,
Yeah.
get over yourself. It's
Yeah.
probably not selfish.
Yeah.
Bring it out and do something about it. Like if you see that you want to do something, chances are other men want to too.
What do you guys think? Like, if just to flip it, I just want to play. I want to look at this side of the coin. So, individual initiative. Now, somebody like me who uh tries to practice I too, I can tell you that I also get myself into trouble of making too many commitments, of taking too much initiative.
Mm.
So it's like if you're somebody who sees a lot of needs and you're passionate and you actively want to do all these things and you genuinely are trying to do all these things, like at a certain point you start to spread yourself thin and then you don't do anything. And then like I've been in situations where it's like, they say death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's like death by 1,000 little yeses or 1,000 little commitments. Then you get all these open loops and you're like, oh my God, I'm into too many projects. I've taken too much initiative. And then it's like, I don't know, like what's the solution for that? Is it you have to figure out how to prioritize? Is that a big
Yeah,
problem?
I think it's prioritization. I've heard someone say, yes, not right now.
Not
So-
no, but not now.
Yeah, right. I want to do that thing, but not right now. Or I want to do that thing after I get through what I'm doing right now. I think
Yeah.
it is prioritization. Being able to say yes to as much as possible, but in the right way.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like if you spread yourself too thin, you're not really giving a full yes. You're giving like a surface level yes. And then you really can't do much about it because you're so tapped out. You're so spread thin that you can't execute the yes.
Maybe that's like the next level of leadership, though, is like learn how to delegate it. So then maybe that's the other thing is that when you see an initiative or you see there's a gap or need, like maybe you're not the guy to do it. And maybe that next level of leadership, if we're talking about live right or get right, live right, lead right, maybe that part of that lead right is saying, I want this. I know it can exist, and I know a guy who can do it, and he should be doing it. And I'm going to reach out to that guy. I'm going to push him to try to do this.
Yeah,
because I think he could be the one to do it. Like maybe that's like the next level.
Yeah,
leadership. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem.
if it's a good fit,
Perfect.
maybe that person's been waiting for someone to tap him on the shoulder and say,
Yeah.
"It's your time. Like this is perfect for you."
I don't know.
Douglas, anything else from Q Source? I know you guys have been pretty deep into it. What I want to do, just moving forward, I just thought of this today because I was talking to Snail Mail about his upcoming podcast. He's gotten back on the Q sheet. I said, happy to have people come as many times as they want, but now I need you to go into the Q sheet and find a chapter. I want to do that. Like if you're going to come back a second, third time, come back with something different to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we can't do the meet the packs over and over again. So he's going to find a chapter in Q Source. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so for those listening at home, we do Q Source every Tuesday morning in the Shamanwood region. We typically meet at Three Rivers right after the beatdown. 6:30 we typically kick off. We're open to moving that around a little bit if we need to where the guys need to be. Excuse me. It's in the Q sheet, just like the podcast here. So we'd love to see some fresh faces out there and fresh ideas and fresh leaders.
All right. Well, I'll close this with a COT. I got this email I think it was the same day that we had talked
Mm.
about why you wanted to come back. And it talks, I'll just read through it because it's better stated. It says, how often are we living up to the standards that those we call leaders fall so woefully short of? When was the last time you stood on principle? How much did that cost you? What problems are you solving in your community? What kind of compromises are you facilitating? What aisles are you reaching across? How are you being a leader in your own life? We control our example and our own actions. And so it is in our own lives and our own sphere of influences that we must be the change we wish to see in the world.
Hmm.
It's a perfect way to wrap up what we've been talking
love
about
it.
today. And it came before we even had this conversation.
I love it,
So
man.
it teed it up perfectly. All right, we'll wrap up here as we always do. Thanks for tuning into a very special episode of Out of the Gloom. I am Bill Skoronsky, 47, sorry, Puddles.
Puddles.
Bottles. John Christ, 41, Doghouse.
Doghouse. I'm John, 39, Millville.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
We'll see you in the gloom.